What is going on, everybody? It is currently 8:31 p.m. Central Time, Thursday, September 14th. Uh, I'm recording this in the middle of Thursday Night Football. I believe it's almost halftime. Looks like it anyway. Yeah, 34 seconds left. And Minnesota Justin Jefferson just, I guess you say, fumble the ball for a touchback, however that works, into the end zone for a touchback. At least I assume that's what happened. I missed it, and I had the game muted because I was about to start recording. But recording this, like I said, recording this on Thursday. I just checked in for my flight. I leave for vacation tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it. Going back to North Carolina, a place that I absolutely love. So I'm already packed. Not much else to do. I made dinner. I packed. Going for a week. Got football on, and I was like, only thing left to do is podcast. So here we go. Obviously, the big news this week is Aaron Rodgers. So Monday night, I'll be honest, I was looking forward to Monday Night Football. My car's been in the shop for over a week now. Just it ain't looking good for the Jeep, and so I've been working from home. And really, on Monday, it was also because it was a Monday. But once 5 o'clock hit, I slammed the laptop. I was like, I'm focused on football. And I was looking forward to that game. It was an awesome atmosphere. Shout out to Jets fans. Anniversary of 9/11, that place was going berserk. The Jets were wearing these sweet throwback uniforms. And, Rodgers comes out of the tunnel holding the American flag. And I was like, this is awesome. And I was looking forward to the game. Bills, Jets, two teams that we thought, at least I did, that were going to compete in the AFC. And it's a shame that on the opening drive of the game for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers goes down with an injury. Not just an injury, it's now been confirmed it's a season-ending injury to his Achilles. And honestly, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I'm throwing it out there that could be the last time we see Aaron Rodgers. He's 40 years old. It's tough to come back from an Achilles at that age, and it's just unfortunate. So it's a bummer. I was bummed out for Aaron Rodgers. I really was rooting for the guy with the Jets. Obviously, I was rooting for him to play because Green Bay would have got that first-round pick, and that is no longer the case. We're going to be stuck with the second. So unfortunate. Just unfortunate overall. Unfortunate for Rodgers. Unfortunate for Jets fans. I don't know what must be going through their mind, man. Talk about an organization that has just been bad for a really long time. It's the Jets. They have not had sustainable quarterback play for really since Joe Namath. Chad Pennington had some decent years. And Rodgers was the best guy that they've had since Namath. And you just got to think, Jets fans have to think that they're cursed. It's just mind-boggling to me that they finally get to a point where they're somewhat confident in the organization. The Jets have a decent roster. I don't think it's as great as some people, but it's one of the better rosters in the game. I would definitely put it in the top half of the league. Is it a top 10 roster? I'm not convinced, but it's a solid roster. They added a future Hall of Famer at quarterback. I don't think Robert Saleh is a terrible head coach. I think he's competent. He hasn't really been given much, but there was a lot of room for optimism with the Jets. And just on the opening drive of the game, man, starting quarterback gets hurt. Now they're stuck with Zach Wilson, likely for the year. And, man, I don't know how to feel if you're a Jets fan. I don't know how Jets fans feel right now. I would imagine that they're pretty down in the dumps. But the Jets ended up winning the game, which was surprising. A lot of it had to do with Josh Allen throwing 3 interceptions. So you can tell me all you want. I've heard Rich Eisen, who's a big Jets fan, say that this is still a top 10 team. I'm like, no, it is not after Rodgers' injury. And his whole point was how they still won the game. And I said, if Josh Allen doesn't throw 3 interceptions, that game's a blowout. I don't think it would have been 30-3, but it would have been a 16-3 kind of game if Allen hadn't thrown 3 interceptions. So what do I think? I think the Bills are kind of in trouble. I'm not ready to completely say that they are in trouble, but they're getting to that point for me. This team ever since that loss to Kansas City, I should say, in the playoffs with 13 seconds left, and they blew the game against the Chiefs. Ever since that, it has felt like the Bills have kind of been on a steady decline. The team loses Brian Daboll, huge loss. Josh Allen now all of a sudden is a turnover machine. I think I read somewhere that he's thrown 32 or has 32 turnovers in his last 34 starts, which is just way too many. And I'm a big Josh Allen fan. Both James and I are big Josh Allen fans. I don't want to say he has given up on Josh Allen, but I am the president, CEO, founder of the Josh Allen fan club. I've been that way since 2018 during his draft process before he was drafted. So I hate to see this. I hope the Bills bounce back. I think they will bounce back. They're a well-run organization. They're well coached. But I'm worried about this team. And just if Allen can't be comfortable and won't make good decisions, this team's going to struggle to compete in the AFC. AFC is really good. And I already had questions about their O-line, offensive weapons. Outside of Diggs are okay, not great. And now you throw in a turnover-prone Josh Allen, and it's very concerning. My thoughts on the Jets, I have a difficult time seeing this team compete without Aaron Rodgers. Are they going to be like a 3-4-5-1 team? Probably not. But 6-11, 7-10, that feels about right. They're in a tough division. The AFC is loaded. The front part of their schedule is really, really tough. I said even when they had Aaron Rodgers, I think their first 6 games, I said if they can be 2-4 during that, there's a really good chance that they win 10 or 11 games because the last 10 or 11 games of the schedule is very manageable. But now that you don't have Rodgers, there's a game later in the year against Cleveland. Let me pull up their schedule real quick on my iPad. 2023 New York Jets. So let's look at their schedule. So they did beat Buffalo, which was a game I didn't have them winning in the preseason. Then at Dallas, that's going to be tough. I think Dallas is going to feast on the Jets' offensive line. New England at home, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think Zach Wilson's beating Bill Belichick. Kansas City at home, I think you're looking at a 1-3 start right there. At Denver, winnable, not impossible. Definitely winnable. Maybe 2-3. Philly at home, I would probably say 2-4 right there. Maybe 1-5. Then a bye week at the Giants. That's not really even a road game. They play in the same building. Who knows? Chargers at home. That could go either way, I feel like. Then at the Raiders, winnable. At the Bills, I doubt that they would win that game. Miami at home, I don't think Zach Wilson's outscoring the Dolphins' offense. Atlanta at home, maybe. Then at Miami, I don't think that's a winnable game. Washington at home, that's a winnable game. At Cleveland looks pretty good right now. Then at New England, this is going to be tough. It's going to be a tough schedule. If they can get out of this schedule at 7 or 8 wins, you got to feel good about it. But everyone's going to say, now that the Jets keep that first-round pick that would have gone to Green Bay if Rodgers had played 65% of the snaps this year, now that they keep that first-round pick, everyone's going to say you got to invest in the offensive line. I think you got to go quarterback. Rodgers will be 41 next year. There's no guarantee he's going to be back. Do you take your chances on someone in free agency? I think Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent again. Are you able to find a quarterback? I feel like there's been a quarterback trade each of the last 2 off seasons that were noteworthy. Yeah, there were. Rodgers this year and last year, Russell Wilson, a bunch of others. So could you find another guy through that? Possibly. But I would look to drafting a quarterback. They're probably going to end up with a top 10 pick, maybe top 12. And this is going to be a really good quarterback draft class. there are 4, 5, 6 guys that are going to go maybe in the first round, but likely top 50. You got, and now I'm blanking on their names, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix. Who's the other guy? Bo Nix. I think. I don't know. I've heard conflicting reports. I feel like about Shooter Sanders. I would throw him in the mix. There's going to be a lot of options, and I think if the Jets, are at pick 10, 11, 12, which feels right, Bo Nix is probably going to be on the board. Quinn Ewers was the other one I was thinking of. Those, you're probably not going to get Drake May or Caleb Williams, but all those other guys are going to be on the board, and I think they can find a franchise quarterback there, even if Rodgers comes back. I feel like that's what you need to do. I feel like that's what you need to do. He's going to be 41 years old next year, coming off an Achilles injury. That's going to be really tough. If I was Joe Douglas, I would go ahead and start scouting these college quarterbacks. So that's really all of my thoughts on Monday Night Football. I will say, while I was pissed about losing that first-round pick, while I was bummed out for Rodgers, I found the whole moment pretty comedic. Just for the Jets, I'm like, they talked a lot of shit in the offseason about how much better they were than Green Bay, and, well, not so much right now. So I had a little bit of a smile on my face through that. I wasn't smiling about Rodgers getting injured. It was just mostly about Jets fans being like, oh, we're the Jets again. So just funny. So that's really all I got. Nothing else happened this week. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and get right into picks. Let me pull it up here, the slate of games. NFL. Let's start with the NFL. All right, Thursday Night Football. Right now the Eagles lead 13-7. I picked the Eagles on my blog. And I picked them to actually cover the spread. It was Eagles -6, I think, was the final line. Just the Eagles are too good in the trenches, man. Minnesota's offensive line is in shambles. I saw Christian Darrisaw got hurt. Starting center's out. I think they said they have a starting guard out. So they're banged up. And this was already an offensive line that wasn't great. And now, you're down two or three of your best offensive linemen on an offensive line that already wasn't good. And Eagles have a deep and talented defensive front, and they're getting after Kirk Cousins right now. So I think this is only going to get worse as the game progresses. So Sunday, the first game, which Sunday is my birthday, so shout out to me. Hopefully Green Bay, and this is actually the first game, hopefully Green Bay can get me a win. So Green Bay at Atlanta. The line on this game has shifted and just makes me think something's up. But it's opened with Green Bay, I think, was -1, then went to -1.5, and now it has totally flipped to Atlanta -1.5. And I don't know what to make of that. The Green Bay's injury report, I don't think anyone's, of note is hurt other than Christian Watson. Everyone else, I think, is playing. We knew Eric Stokes wasn't going to be available, but Eric Stokes and Christian Watson are really the only two major injuries, I would say. And I don't know. I know Green Bay has struggled in Atlanta. They haven't won there since 2011. I was texting James this week. I was like, I have nothing but bad memories of Atlanta for the last decade, and I don't feel good about this matchup. However, when I break down the matchup, I'm like, better head coach, I think it's Matt LaFleur. Better quarterback, I think Jordan Love. I think Desmond Ridder hasn't really shown me anything. At least I saw something out of Jordan Love, really even dating back to last year and then last week. Better O-line, I think it's Green Bay right now. Better defensive front, I think it's Green Bay. Where Atlanta has the advantage is probably offensive weapons, but even then, is it a significant margin than Green Bay? I don't think so, especially if Christian Watson plays, which I don't think he will. But I don't think Atlanta has a huge advantage, in terms of offensive weapons. Plus, do you trust Desmond Ridder to get them the ball? I don't. And then I think Atlanta might have the better secondary. It's close, Jair Alexander, AJ Terrell, Jair Alexander's maybe better. But Jesse Bates is definitely the best safety in this game, better than anyone on Green Bay. Rasul Douglas is probably the best number 2 corner in this game. But I'm willing to give the edge to Atlanta because they have 2 studs in AJ Terrell and who was the other name I mentioned? Jesse Bates. But anyway, like I said, when I was breaking down this matchup, I was like, coach, Green Bay, quarterback, Green Bay, O-line, Green Bay, defensive front, Green Bay. I guess I'll take Green Bay, even though I don't particularly feel good. I have nightmares in Atlanta, man. We've not played well there for the last 12 years. But we haven't played that many games there. I think 3 times, and the most recent one was 2017. These teams haven't played each other much. And, Matt Ryan's gone. Julio Jones is gone. It's a whole new staff down there for both teams. I'm going to go with Green Bay. Probably will be a close game. Raiders at Bills. I'm going to go with the Bills. They can't afford to start 0-2. They're too well coached. Josh Allen's really talented. The Bills, I wrote it on my blog, the Bills' defense has been really good at home the last few years. I think they're allowing like 19 points per game in their since 2021, which is really good. Right now they're an 8.5-point favorite. I will say that's a big number. I think the Raiders might cover that. The Raiders, do you really trust Jimmy Garoppolo to go on the road and knock off Buffalo? I don't. Better head coach, I think it's Sean McDermott. Better quarterback, Josh Allen. Better O-line. Neither are great. Better defensive front, I'd go Buffalo. So this is a game Buffalo should win, but I got a feeling Vegas might cover. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Right now it's Bengals -3. It was originally 3.5. I think Baltimore's too banged up. They've sustained a lot of injuries. Marlon Humphrey's been hurt. They got some starters on the offensive line hurt. Lamar Jackson didn't look great last week. Struggled a lot. Cincinnati needs to win this game. They can't start 0-2. We all know the 0-2 stat, that it's, how difficult it is to make the playoffs after an 0-2 start. So I think Cincinnati bounces back. Probably going to be an ugly game. I will go with the Bengals to win. This will be a close game, though. Chiefs at Jags. I think this is the game of the week. And I struggled with this one. I went back and forth because I really think Jacksonville is a legitimately good team. But I'm going to give the slight edge to Kansas City. But what I was going to say with Jacksonville is I think that they want to send a message in this game that they're a top dog in the AFC. So Kansas City better be ready because I think Jacksonville's going to be ready. And we're talking a former assistant of Andy Reid's, Doug Peterson, now the head coach at Jacksonville. He's going to know certain tendencies, I think. This is not going to be a cakewalk for Kansas City. And if Kansas City does not bring its A game, it will lose. Granted, that's the case for every team in the NFL. But I am going to pick the Chiefs to bounce back. They're coming off extra time to prepare. They've had 10 days, roughly. The big news is they get Chris Jones back. That's huge to their defensive front. Travis Kelce might play. Even if Kelce doesn't play, I think adding Jones is going to be huge for Kansas City. That gives them, an interior presence, and then they have Karlaftis coming off the edge. That's huge for them. Jacksonville's offensive line isn't great. Their defensive front's not great. I think Kansas City has the advantage in the trenches. Obviously, the better quarterback, better head coach. I'm going to bank on the Chiefs to bounce back and win this game. Chargers at Titans. I went with the Titans in this game, and I don't feel good about it at all. I just don't trust Brandon Staley. And he faced a better coach last week in Mike McDaniel, and I think Mike McDaniel's a very competent head coach. I don't know where I would rank him. I don't think he's a top 10 head coach. Somewhere maybe in that 11 through 16 range. But Vrabel's there too. And Brandon Staley might be the worst head coach in the league right now. And I just don't trust him when he's going off against a significantly better head coach, which, like I said, I think Mike Vrabel is. The Chargers have also really struggled to stop the run. Every year Brandon Staley has been there. That doesn't bode well when facing Derrick Henry. The Titans are going to lean on Derrick Henry, and I expect them to move the chains, keep the clock running, keep Justin Herbert off the field. Not confident in it, but I am going to pick Tennessee to win this game. Seahawks at Lions. The line on this game has gone down, so Seahawks getting a lot of credit here. But I want to say it started -6.5, and now it's down to -4.5. It was at least 5.5. I might be wrong about the 6.5. I expect Seattle to show up in this game. Didn't play well at all last week. They got to win this game to avoid 0-2. It's just going to be hard. They're going to be without some guys. They're like Baltimore. They're just too banged up right now. They were without Jamal Adams and I want to say Devon Witherspoon, or Devin Witherspoon, I think his name is. And then they'll probably be without their starting 2 offensive tackles. Tyler Lockett got hurt in the game. It's just not looking good for Seattle. Detroit's a really good team. They've had more time to prepare. Maybe a better quarterback. They're definitely better in the trenches, I think, than Seattle. I think their offensive line's better than Seattle's defensive front, and that's going to be a huge gain for them. And if Adams and Witherspoon don't play, I think Seattle's going to have a difficult time defending Detroit's passing attack. So I will take Detroit to win. I might even take them to cover, but that's going to be close. Colts at Texans. The line on this game has shifted too. It was originally Colts -1, and now it's Texans -1.5. And the second half has started for Thursday Night Football. I went with the Colts. I know this is a road game. Oh, another turnover for Minnesota. That just sucks. That just sucks. But I don't know what to make of either of these teams. I don't think either of them are that good. But I'm going to go with the Colts because between C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, I was more impressed with Anthony Richardson last week. I think he's further along in his development than Stroud. He also has more to work with. The Colts have some weapons offensively. They also have a much better offensive line than Houston, and they have a much better defensive line than Houston. And that's where I think this game's going to matter. I think Indianapolis' defensive front, DeForest Buckner looked like a stud last week. I think they're going to wreak havoc on Houston's offensive line and make C.J. Stroud really uncomfortable. Plus, head coach, I'm probably going to say Shane Steichen's a better head coach. Plus, if you go look at the matchups from week 1, the offensive line or offensive coaches had a really good track record against defensive-minded coaches last week. I don't remember the number, but it was a substantial advantage, and I think the same thing's going to happen here. Bears at Bucks. I don't see how the Bears bounce back after the way they performed last week. They look bad. Their offensive line could not keep Justin Fields upright. They couldn't win up front. And Tampa Bay's defensive line's pretty good. And between Baker Mayfield and Justin Fields, I'm going to take Baker Mayfield. I don't trust Justin Fields at all. At home, I think Todd Bowles is a better head coach, too, than Eberflus. So give me the Bucks to win and probably the Bucks to cover. Because right now it's Bucks -2.5. Giants at Cardinals. This feels like a really good – Giants are -4. This feels like a really good opportunity for the Giants to bounce back. Sunday Night Football was an abysmal performance, one of the worst I've seen. And I like banking on teams that were embarrassed on primetime. So I think the Giants bounce back. Arizona is, they really pulled out all the stops last week after hearing all offseason about how terrible they were. And, they gave Washington a good fight. And, it's a home opener for them, so they're going to show up. But this feels like a game the Giants should win. They are the better team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better coach. If they lose, then it's panic time, which it already was because they'd be 0-2. But if they lose against Arizona, a team that I consider to be the worst in the league right now, it's officially panic time for the Giants. And you really got to start thinking, was last year a fluke? But I will expect the Giants to bounce back. 49ers at Rams. Right now it's 49ers -7.5 on the road. I took the 49ers not only because they're the better team, but I didn't buy the Rams' performance last week. It's a long season. Play that game against Seattle in Seattle like in November. I would take Seattle to win because it's, like I said, it's a long season, and I don't think the Rams have much depth. you can show up for week 1. Can you show up for week 2 against San Francisco? That remains to be seen. I just didn't buy the performance by the Rams last week. I still think they're mediocre to bad team. Plus, Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number throughout their careers. I think Shanahan has won like 7 of the last 8 meetings between these coaches, or 8 of the last 9. I don't remember. But I'm going to go with Shanahan and the 49ers. The track record is just too strong in their favor. Jets at Cowboys. Like I was saying, this is going to be a really bad matchup for the Jets. They struggled against Buffalo's defensive front. Well, Dallas has a better defensive front. They're loaded with dudes who can rush the passer. I think Zach Wilson's going to be very uncomfortable. He's probably going to make a few mistakes. The Jets' defense will be solid. They should keep the Jets in the game. It'll just be one of those games. It'll be a typical Jets game like they had last year. Defense kind of keeps them in the game for a half, and I expect Dallas to just take over in the second because the defense will be on the field too long. So right now it's Dallas -9, and yeah, that feels about right. I think Dallas wins. Dallas covers probably by 10 to 14 points. Washington at Denver. This is kind of a coin flip for me. I don't think either team is that good, but I went with Denver. Better head coach. Probably better quarterback, even though I'm worried about Russell Wilson. But Mile High is one of the toughest places to play. Broncos need it more. They need it more. So they can't afford to be 0-2. Like I said, better coach, tough place to play. Give me the Broncos. But that's going to be a close game. Dolphins at Patriots. This is another one. I took the underdog. The line on this game is Dolphins -3. It's kind of stayed that way all week. Everyone's going to take the Dolphins. Everyone's going to take the Dolphins because of how they played last week. Everyone's going to think who's going to stop this offense. Who's going to stop Tua? Who's going to stop Tariq Hill? Who's going to stop Jalen Waddle? For whatever reason, I'm going with New England. First of all, Tua has not had the best luck or has not fared well against Bill Belichick. I wrote about it on my blog. I don't remember his numbers, but they weren't good. And I think the Patriots' defensive front could get after Miami's offensive line, especially if Teron Armstead doesn't play again like he did in last week. New England's secondary, I think, is pretty good. I do think Belichick is going to dial up, a good enough game plan to prevent the Dolphins from scoring too many points. And then on the other side, I think the Patriots were actually pretty solid offensively last week. I would feed Ramondre Stevenson the ball. Mac Jones played somewhat well. I think we saw how much of an impact Bill O'Brien has made on this offense in just a short amount of time. Like I said, I'm going with the Patriots. Not super confident in it, but this feels like a game the Patriots can and should win, with it being in Foxborough. Monday Night Football, Saints at Panthers. Right now it's Saints -3. I'm taking the Saints to win and to cover. The Panthers just, man, I was way off on them. Their roster just isn't as good as I thought. Offensive line struggled last week. They got a really bad receiving core that I gave too much credit. Not a lot of speed. Bryce Young, rookie quarterback, didn't look great. Carolina's got a good defense, but how far can that take you when you got a rookie quarterback and an offense that's not great? Plus Frank Reich, he just has a terrible record in September and early October. So give me the Saints to win and to cover. Browns at Steelers. This was really tough. I think the Steelers are going to be a whole lot better. However, their offensive line is a major concern. And Cleveland's defensive front was awesome last week. It looks like they're going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Myles Garrett, I think, is just going to wreak havoc against Pittsburgh's offensive line. I also think Cleveland can match up against Cleveland's secondary can match up against Pittsburgh's offensive weapons. Deshaun Watson's also a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett, although I'm not sure about how much because we haven't seen Deshaun Watson return to Houston Texans form yet. But Cleveland, man, they looked I mean, I don't think that they're a great team, but they had a strong showing last week, and Pittsburgh did not. I am expecting Pittsburgh to bounce back, but I'm going to go with the Browns to win. So those are my week 2 picks in the NFL. So let's go over to college, where it's not a strong week. It's not a strong week. All right. I had 12 games. I'm just pulling it up. Give me a minute. All right. The first game I have is number 7 Penn State at Illinois. Penn State right now is favored minus 14.5. I was already questioning whether or not Illinois had the offense to win this game, but now I'm questioning whether or not it has the defense to win this game. They got smoked by Kansas last week. Illinois' defense has really struggled against the run this year. I don't know the numbers. I wrote about it on my blog. They're giving up over 200 yards a game on the ground. Penn State's got a really good rushing attack. Plus, Drew Aller has looked really good at quarterback. I'm going to go with Penn State to win and probably to cover. The other game, and I think this is the game of the week, number 14 LSU at Mississippi State. Man, the line on this game is absurd. It's LSU minus 9.5. Hang on, I'm watching the game. Oh, wide open. Devontae Smith, nice. Fuck the Vikings. LSU at Mississippi State. I took Mississippi State, actually. This is a team that's given LSU a lot of trouble in the last 3 to 5 years. It's in Starkville. LSU's defense has been really bad so far this year. They're allowing about 6.5 yards per play defensively. Just look at the way they played against Florida State. It was very uninspiring. And against Grambling, I know they only gave up 10, but they gave up a lot of yards per play, a lot of yards on the ground. Mississippi State, man, they're a really underrated team. They have talent on their roster. They've been running the ball really well so far this season. And Will Rodgers, I think, can pick up – is it Will Rodgers? No, I'm not sure. Let's see. It is Will Rodgers. Someone texted me. Hang on. Oh, yeah. That was from a group text that I'm not sure why I'm on. Anyway, I think Will Rodgers can pick apart LSU secondary, which hasn't been great either. Just LSU's not a good defensive team. I'm shocked this line is LSU minus 9.5. So even if Mississippi State doesn't win, I'm going to take it to cover that spread. Number 15, Kansas State at Missouri. Missouri's I just don't buy Eli Drinkwitz. The media loves him. And I think it's because he recruits well. Like, he says all the right things. I just don't buy him as a head coach. I've never bought him as a head coach. And, he hasn't shown me anything at Missouri. And I wrote on my blog, he has been significantly outmanned, outplayed, outcoached against ranked opponents. The only time he didn't was against South Carolina, I think last year, and Georgia last year. Every other time, he's been outscored by almost 200 points against ranked opponents. That's not good. And Kansas State's a good team. They have really good personnel in the trenches. I think Will Howard is a better quarterback than Missouri's quarterback. Plus, Kleiman's a much better head coach than Drinkwitz. So I'm going to go with Kansas State to win, Kansas State to cover. What other games we got? Because that's what? 1, 2, 3. What's my fourth? I got 12 to talk about. South Carolina at number 1, Georgia. Georgia, 27.5 point favorite. That's too big of a number. I will take Georgia to win, though, because South Carolina's offensive line has been a major problem this season. They allowed, I think, 9 sacks to North Carolina in week 1. They're averaging only about 1 yard per rush. It's absurdly bad. And Georgia, I know Kirby Smart's got dudes defensively. I know they got dudes on the defensive front. This could get ugly for South Carolina, but I will say that they cover that spread because Georgia hasn't been that impressive. San Diego State at number 16, Oregon State. Oregon State might be the most underrated team in the country. Oregon State is a 24.5-point favorite. I will take the Beavers to win, probably to cover too, although that's a big number. Just don't think San Diego State's a good enough team. Oregon State has dominated its competition. DJ Uiagalelei has played really well, much better than where he was playing at Clemson. Jonathan Smith's a really good coach. And like I said, I think Oregon State's a really underrated team, and people need to start paying attention to them. So I'll take the Beavers. Minnesota at number 20, North Carolina. I just don't think Minnesota is good enough offensively. So I'm going to go with the Tar Heels. Tar Heels are also minus 7.5. The Golden Gophers just aren't good offensively. They scored 13 points against Nebraska. They scored, I think, 25 points last week against Eastern Michigan. That's not going to cut it, man. North Carolina is a really good offensive team. They've played really well at home offensively under Mac Brown. Drake May, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So the Tar Heels should win. Will they cover? I don't know, but I'm going to go with the Tar Heels to win. This is probably the easiest game to pick this week. Number 8, Washington at Michigan State. Right now it's Washington minus 16.5. Michigan State's in a bad spot right now. Mel Tucker isn't fired yet. He's suspended, but he's going to get fired. Michigan State will be coachless for this game. I don't know where their head's at. I think they're going to be distracted with the Tucker news. And it's coming up at a really bad time because Washington's a really good team. They might have the best offense in the country with Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. Long road trip to go, so I think Michigan State might keep it within the spread, but it's just probably going to be one of those games where it's like, how is Michigan State covering the spread? Because Washington's dominating the game. But Washington should win. Number 11, Tennessee at Florida. For whatever reason, I think Florida's going to show up this week. They look really bad week 1. Billy Napier, I'm not sure he needs to win this game to keep his job. But he needs to win this game to show that this program's heading in the right direction, or at least have a good showing. So I think Florida's going to be dialed in. I think that they know that they need this game. So I think that they will put up a good fight, probably even cover the spread. I'm also not sure how good Tennessee is yet. I think they're pretty good. Josh Heupel, I think, is a good coach, probably the better coach in this matchup. Joe Milton, I think, is a really talented quarterback, but Tennessee is going to want to run the ball. But I do think the Volunteers found a way to get it down the road. Another turnover for the Vikings, man. I just hate to see it. What are the other games? Because that's, how many have I said? About 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Oh, no, 8. So what's the next game? Because I did Tennessee, Florida. I got 4 more. Georgia Tech at number 17, Ole Miss. Right now, Ole Miss is minus. Oh, it's not a turnover from Minnesota. And it's a Minnesota touchdown. Damn. Georgia Tech at number 17, Ole Miss. Right now, Ole Miss is a 17.5-point favorite. I'll tell you right now, I think Georgia Tech is going to cover that spread. I don't think they're going to win this game, but that's a big number. Georgia Tech is a much better team than people think. Brent Pry has done a really good job since he took over last year as interim head coach, and now he's got the interim removed from his title. I think Georgia Tech's going to show up. I think they're going to make this interesting, but I will take Ole Miss to win. They just have too much firepower offensively, and I think Georgia Tech is going to have a difficult time keeping up. BYU at Arkansas. BYU has not been impressive through 2 weeks. They've played lesser competition. They played Sam Houston State and I think Southern Utah, Utah Tech, something like that. Last week, have not been impressive in either game. So, long road trip, SEC competition, SEC environment. I think Arkansas is in a better spot as a program right now. They might have the better quarterback. Actually, I think they do have the better quarterback in KJ Jefferson. I'll go with the Razorbacks. Right now, they are an 8-point favorite. They might cover that. What are the other games? TCU at Houston. I think this is the last one. Or second to last one. TCU at Houston. It would be so on brand with Dana Holgorsen to lose to Rice last week because he was overlooking the opponent to TCU this week. But I don't think Houston is good enough defensively. Even you look at last week or week 1, you're like, well, they only allowed 14 points to a good UTSA team. Well, they had at least 3 turnovers. I think it was 3 interceptions against Frank Harris. When you win the turnover battle by that much, you should win by more than 3 points, and it was an ugly game. Then they didn't show up the next week or last week against Rice, and look how that turned out. I just don't think Houston's a good enough defensive team. TCU is, has been solid offensively. Probably going to be a shootout, and I'm going to take TCU to win. I just think they're a better team right now than Houston. And I think that the only one left is my game, the Backyard Brawl. Let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Yep. So all that's left is the Backyard Brawl. So right now, this is another one. Both of my teams this week, the lines have shifted, and it's making me like, what the heck's going on? So in the NFL, it shifted in Atlanta's favor. In this game, it shifted in my team's favor. So on Sunday, the lines came out. Pitt was a 1.5-point favorite, and just over the course of 2 or 3 days, it has shifted from Pitt -1.5 to West Virginia -2.5. There's still a couple days left. I read somewhere that like 87% of the people betting on this game are taking West Virginia. That concerns me because this is not a team that you bet on. They are a really bad team, but in a week full of bad matchups, I had to throw in the Backyard Brawl. However, with that said, while I think West Virginia is a bad team, Pitt is equally as bad, I think, or worse. Pitt's offensive line is a major concern. They haven't had a ton of luck or a ton of success running the ball. They've had a difficult time keeping Phil Jurkovich upright. They had a really tough time last week against Cincinnati, and I honestly think West Virginia has the better defensive front than Cincinnati. So at home, I feel like West Virginia has had this circled since losing last year's game, which was down to the wire and kind of a fluke win for Pitt. But I feel like they've had this circled. Neil Brown should definitely have had this circled since last year because he needs to win this game to likely keep his job. So at home, that place is going to be berserk. First time the Backyard Brawl has been there in 12 years. I'm going to go with West Virginia. Pitt's defense has also struggled to stop the run. West Virginia has a really good offensive line and a really good run game. I expect them to just run heavy behind All-American Zach Frazier at center. And if so, like if they can get to, 200 yards rushing, which is what Pitt gave up to Cincinnati, I think we're going to be in a good spot to win this game. And I am going to take West Virginia. Probably going to be a close game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. But I think West Virginia is the better team. And like I said, I think they've had this game circled since last year. So that'll do it for me on my picks this week. That'll do it for this podcast. Just under 45 minutes right now. I don't have much else to say. I believe I mentioned I'm going on vacation at the beginning of the show. We'll see if I can get a podcast out. I don't know if I'll do it Monday, Sunday. Maybe Monday, while family's at the beach, and I'll just be in the beach or the house. I can do something for 45 minutes to an hour. That won't be too bad. But I'll try to get something out. I doubt I'm going to have James on. Maybe I will, but I'll try to get something out next week. Other than that, let's everyone have a good weekend. Let's enjoy some football.